All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for some real people out there, just like you and just like me. So the saga between KK Priest or KK Downing and Judas Priest continues. You could say it's a battle between KK's Priest and Judas Priest. That's KK Downing's new band, which is a bit like his old band, just a little bit. I don't blame the guy for going out there and trying to earn some money. It appears there was a bit of a misunderstanding back in 2010. This article is titled KK Downing and Why I'm Angry About Not Being Allowed to Rejoin Judas Priest. Now, for me, as a casual fan of this band, mostly their 70s material, Rock-a-Rolla, like Coca-Cola, what a great album that was. Stained Class, really great. British Steel, obviously amazing. Point of Entry is a really good album too. And then you get into full-blown 80s madness. Screaming for Vengeance becomes probably the band's biggest record. I don't know if it's between that and British Steel, but the band explodes in the 80s with that metal scene, which they really influenced. So here's the deal. You probably need to put Priest into the Hall of Fame, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that is, because their influence in the 70s spawned an entire generation of bands in the 80s, and they obviously adapted with keyboards and did all of the things the 80s bands were doing, but they were doing it at a super high level. Again, I got less interested in the band as time went on. My tastes began to change, but I do respect their earlier work, and KK Downing was truly foundational in all of that. And he says, I feel as though I was ousted out of the band after 40 years. I mean, if you take the guys individually, Rob left the band for 14 years, and I was instrumental in getting him back. Glenn left for 6 years to do 2 solo records. He was allowed to do that, no problem. If that's what you want to do artistically, I can't stop you. And Ian, bless him, we went to kindergarten together, me and Ian, but he was never a writer in the band. He comes along with his bass guitar and he does a great job. But without the songs, there is no band. I provided the songs all of those years, which was a livelihood for Ian. And now he's saying he's voting me not to come back into the band. Now, my guess is there's probably something more going on here, but this is a pretty convincing story here from KK Downing. He goes on to say, can you see the irony and why I'm angry about it all? The 3 guys, and I was the loyal guy. I was the guy who never wanted to play with other people because my focus was only Judas Priest. So addressing his decision to call his new band KK's Priest, he said, that's why I'm a priest now, because I'm not going to give my life's legacy and my creation up. So essentially he's saying, you know, Priest was my legacy, so I'm going to continue in that vein. No more Judas. We just, instead of Judas, interesting how the band is called Judas Priest, right? And maybe there is a Judas in the band. Who knows? Don't know who the Judas is. So it's a bit of a juicy irony here. He says, I'm not going to give my life's legacy and my creation up. And that's why I decided to carry on and call this KK's Priest and not the Flying Tornadoes or the Pink Willies. Oh man, or something else obscure, because my legacy and my heritage, that just cracked me up. And this whole thing, I'm not going to say belongs to me, but it does. I've done that before. I'm not going to say it belongs to me, but it does. You just did say it belongs to you. A massive, massive part of this is in my veins and nobody else's. So KK Downing throwing down hard. Of course, now he's got former Judas Priest singer Tim Ripper Owens singing, along with guitarist AJ Mills, bassist Tony Newton, and drummer Sean Elg. Could be Elg or Elge, but I bet you it's Elg, which is kind of a strange last name. Mr. Elg. I don't know. It's kind of a cool heavy metal drummer name, right? I would just call him Elg. There's Elg on drums. Anyway, I'm looking at this thing, and you've got Priest going in, possibly going into the Hall of Fame. This is a good time for everybody to talk their talk and get their points out there, do interviews, drum up support. In this case, you know, if people start to feel sorry for KK, they might take a look at his band. Quite honestly, it's really similar to what Judas Priest has been as far as the last maybe 10 or 20 years of their existence. It's a good record by those standards. I'm not really into this stuff. Like I told everybody at the beginning, I like the 70s and early 80s Priest material the most, and a few sporadic moments after that. But this is a band that's got a legacy, and they've influenced a whole generation, meaning all of that 80s hair metal stuff. Definitely, Judas Priest was a huge influence on that. In the 70s, they were chugging along with bands like Deep Purple and Black Sabbath, and they were charting new territory. They're kind of like the unwanted stepchild a little bit. You can tell that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is just like, really, Judas Priest? But like I said in other videos, I think the Priest narrative, especially regarding Rob Halford, is something that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame wants to promote. So they can use that as a way to justify putting Judas Priest in there. I think Judas Priest should be put in there because they were unique. They influenced a lot of bands, and they have quite the catalog and quite the album sales. One thing about Priest is they didn't really need a whole lot of radio support to earn them a lot of money, because their fans were out there buying albums and listening to the albums, much like Iron Maiden, right? Does Iron Maiden need radio support? No. And they also should be nominated to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And it's just kind of silly. They should be in there. And so many other bands that came along like that, quite honestly, and have been ignored because of the style of music or what they represented, or the clothes they wore, or the women that were surrounding them, or whatever it was that is now working against them. It's just, it's bias, and it's unfair bias. But this is, of course, an institution which has many issues. I'm talking about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They are a government unto themselves, and if you don't toe the line to what, you know, they're all about, you're probably not going to get nominated and inducted. So there you have it, KK and his Priest, along with Judas and his Priest. There is a Judas in the band. We're just not sure who it is, but I think KK thinks it's just the rest of the band, that they've all become Judas. But we'll see how this all works out. It would be kind of cool to see them all on stage again, accepting the award. That would be cool.